place since the late 18th century, with occasional initiatives and regulations. However, these efforts never addressed the problem in a conceptual manner. The first truly comprehensive approach to the issue came in 1869 from two English engineer entrepreneurs, Samuel Morton Pito and Joseph William Bazalgette. And Bazalgette was the engineer behind the design of the new London sewer system in the 1860s. This marked the beginning of an intense debate over the choice of the most suitable system for the city. In the initial phase, from 1869 to 1874, the first comprehensive proposals for the sewerage system were put forward, and these proposals formed the foundation for the guidelines and the Budapest-wide sewerage program that was later developed by the head of the engineering department. And also this marked the starting point for the approach that led to the construction of Budapest sewerage system, which was based on the principle of main collector sewers running parallel to the Danube and discharging into the river outside the city, similar to the system in London. This period was characterized by technical debates, mostly concerning principles where differing viewpoints clashed. And at this stage, the discourse involved trained professionals like engineers and doctors, as well as the decision makers of the city, who were often engineers and doctors themselves. Several proposals were made, mainly for the Pest side, where the problem was considered most urgent. I will return to this point later, but for now, let us turn to the later phases of the timeline. Between 1875 and 82, the program was approved, leading to the launch of a design competition, the evaluation of proposals, and the completion of surveys. These were then approved by the town assembly, and from 1882 to 91, the preparatory work, including detailed plans, permits, and budgets, was carried out, after which the actual construction work began. Returning to the first phase, which was from 1869 to 74, when the main guidelines were established, which laid the foundation for the subsequent concept. 3 plans were proposed in total about the new system, which were essentially based on 2 opposing principles. One of these plans, based on the system mentioned earlier, involved the construction of several large main sewers running alongside the Danube and discharging outside the city. This would require large-scale construction work and significant modification to the existing sewerage system. 2 plans based on this concept was proposed by one by Bazalgette and one of the Hungarian engineer. And there were another concept. This concept aimed to make use of as much of the existing sewers as possible, minimizing the need for new constructions. In this plan, the main collection sewers would be routed to the Danube via the shortest possible route, with the wastewater being discharged directly into the river within the city. At the same almost at the same location from which the drinking water was taken at the time, with little or no purification. These contradictory plans are particularly interesting because from the sources we know that the experts the experts in Budapest, the written sources and the presence of the foreign experts working in Budapest reveal which European cities were known to Hungarian experts as models. And besides the contrasting approaches of London and Paris, the sewerage system under construction of the German cities as well as Vienna were also influential in shaping ideas for potential solutions in Budapest. And despite working from the same knowledge base, the engineer submitted plans based on conflicting principles. These opposing approaches are likely not due to a lack of knowledge, but rather to differing views on the role of the urban citizen and the governance of the city. Please, the next slide. Yeah, so this period saw a shift in the roles of the city government and the urban citizen in many regions, including Budapest during the 1870s, 1880s. This shift had a significant impact of infrastructure planning. For example, the Budapest City Council, like its counterpart in Vienna, was dominated by the industrial and traditional bourgeois, who initially opposed large-scale infrastructure projects. This resistance originated partly from the fact that this class had a vested economic interest in maintaining existing practices. For instance, in Paris, the entrepreneurial landowning class benefited from extracting fertilizer from the houses rather than disposing of waste into the sewers. The prevailing mentality of this group was that the upkeep of the city was the responsibility of the urban citizen, which did not include making major infrastructure investments that would require the city to take on substantial debt. In contrast, there was a growing perception of the city's role as a municipal authority responsible for creating a framework for a healthy living environment. This included providing utilities and ensuring the conditions for their proper functioning. And ultimately, by the end of the sewerage reform discourse, the latter mindset had prevailed. And I think that this trend of the changing role of the citizen, the governance of the city, can show at the case study of the general sewerage reform in Budapest also. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have seen now water being purified again, or at least drained into the, not purified, at least drained into the river. Now we will see another riverside project, which is not necessarily connected to the water, but perhaps not completely independent. We will hear about that now from Róbert, who is going to talk about the gasworks.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, what we see here is not from Budapest. Actually, it's a view of the Seattle municipal gas works. I show it because it's a very nice photo of kind of it was how it is in the late 19th and early 20th century. I mean, this work existed between like 1907 and 1960 something. So pretty much contemporaneous with the gasworks built in Budapest in the Óbuda area. So it's just to introduce you to how industrial technology looked like at the time, but we can go on to the next slide. So basically I chose gas as kind of a matching topic to the other infrastructural histories, because I think this town gas, as it was called, basically coal gas technology, has had many consequences for the governance of the city, for infrastructural build-up, for planning, and also for pollution control. So basically, one of the basic factors was coal, of course, because very high quality coal was needed to produce gas. The process was based on heating up the coal and producing gas, and also this very good quality coke, which could be used, which was kind of a byproduct, but actually a very valuable byproduct, which could be used in metallurgical processes. So yeah, this is also one of the main points, that gas production was always, the technology chosen for gas production was always based on the concern that they also needed to have byproducts in order to make this production profitable. So that linked Budapest to very distant regions, because in Hungary, in the then Kingdom of Hungary, there was not much good source of industrial quality coal which could be used for producing coke. So basically this linked Budapest to a distant region, to the area of Ostrava. It's a coincidence that I'm kind of about to shift there also, but yeah, it's just a complete coincidence. It wasn't chosen on this purpose. So basically, that was the main source of the coal for this gas work. And this also meant, this kind of need for coal also meant that the factory, wherever it's going to be, needed to be connected through railways infrastructure and also by water infrastructure, through shipping barges to the water lines, to Danube. And since, yeah, of course, transportation on water was much cheaper, it was an advantage if the future works could be built near the Danube. So that was the primary reason why Danube was, the closeness of Danube was kind of a main concern by choosing the site. Yeah, another important factor which also influenced a lot of choices around, a lot of choices in the city and city infrastructure, was that this production of gas also produced very dangerous byproducts, such as carbon monoxide. This was really deadly. This is a really deadly gas, and also methane, which is a very dangerous one because it can explode very easily. And of course, the byproducts, if the byproducts reached the soil and the water, because they were close, because production was taking place very close to Danube, it could also create very extensive pollution of soil. Make it completely unusable, make it completely dangerous, and also pollute the river water to a large extent, which is still happening, unfortunately, actually in the current area of that the works, which of course no longer function. And all this meant also that this kind of works were very expensive. They needed a lot of capital, and it took a lot of years. It took like around 15 years for the city to eventually decide what kind of business ownership structure to choose, because the first gas works, the first town gas works in Budapest were built as early as the late 1850s. Actually, it was began. The production was begun in 1856. In today's Józsefváros, I think we can, if we go further, we can see a photo of it also. Not this one, the one with this one. So this was the first gas works, actually located pretty much in today's 8th district, so not very far from the city center. But as you can already see on these photos, actually the expansion of these works was quite limited, because the area was built in. When the construction of this plant began in 1856, then the area was kind of empty, but it became quite a large a park, as you see, and it also became like site to many other just tenement buildings. So it wasn't really an option to extend this, to expand this when the demand grew. And we can see in the next slide how much actually demand was expected to grow and how much it was growing. There were two charts actually, yeah. So here you can see kind of a projection and the actual development, which was among the reports of among the first reports of the working of the gas plant. So you can see that basically it went up to like 800,000 cubic meters, and it was a lot more than what could be produced in the earlier plants. I mean, in the plant that I was showing you before, basically the production needed to be doubled. Around the time when construction actually started in 1910, it was projected that production needed to be doubled compared to what was produced in the earlier plant. It was a huge jump. I mean, it also reflects, of course, the increase of the city population and just the expansion of the city, as András mentioned in his first talk. So basically, it was a very important choice to make, because city lighting at the time, city lighting was really important. Yeah, I should have mentioned it at first that, yeah, city gas, I mean, this kind of coal gas was primarily used for city lighting. Of course, it was also used for private lighting. I mean, many companies needed also lighting in their own premises. Also, individual users could introduce it to their homes. And already in the 1910s, there were devices which made it possible for households to use gas for cooking purposes. So basically, you had a whole complex of possible needs and demands growing very, very fast. And also it was the city's policy to kind of propagate, as they say, use propaganda. As they said at the time, propaganda was not such a negative term at the time. So they said that we need to use propaganda to make this use of gas, various uses of gas, popular in the city population, because it will just increase the well-being, and it will just make the city more modern. And also, of course, it will produce a lot of income if the gas works is owned by the municipality itself. So this was one of the growing demand was one of the main reasons, while eventually the municipality opted not to kind of outsource this building of a new gas plant to another company, as it had been the practice before 1910. But it kind of bought up, all the premises, all the existing premises from the private companies that owned them before and that kind of operated them before. And gradually the municipality also decided to shut down the existing plants and build up a completely new premises and created an infrastructure which was also giving possibility to further increase production, actually further double the production if it was needed. It was projected that it would be necessary within the next few decades, which kind of materialized actually, of course, with some delay due to the First World War. So basically, this huge investment was realized from a credit, 42 million crowns at the time. It was quite a huge amount, and at the same time, the investment was made in a very efficient way, very kind of unthinkable today, that actually they spent less on the building of the infrastructure than it was planned. They saved more than 1 million crowns at the end that they could use for further kind of infrastructure, which was not even, to install infrastructure in the premises, which was not even foreseen initially. So I think it's a very good case to see how this kind of hybrid nature of certain elements, and in this case, city lighting and gas itself, modifies or kind of determines sometimes political decisions at the municipal level. It also shows what my colleagues have already mentioned, this kind of shift of mentality that means that the municipality itself feels responsible for providing more and more for the citizens, more and more goods and more kind of comfort for the citizens. And they also feel that it's that private ownership is not necessarily a better form of ownership than a municipal form of ownership. And that actually they can even manifest this. They can show that, yes, we made it well, it was not a waste of money, we realized the plant, we made it function. And it was a huge cooperation among many big companies like the state railways, constructing companies, and many engineers. It was a really huge kind of cooperation, a huge network covering a lot of cities in Europe. For example, the chief engineer came from Zurich. It's a really interesting project to study in detail, that really show what hybridity means, what this kind of social natural site means in practice, and how the shifts in mentality take place and how they go together in terms of chronology with the expansion of the city. So I don't want to take so much more time and just pass it on back to András.
Yeah, before finishing, let's see at least an image what you presented.
I forgot, yeah. So yeah, this is what is from 1928. It's from the collection called Fortepan, which is like a free online photography collection, which Ágnes has a criticism about, but I mean about the uses, but I dare to use it. And so it shows the completed works as it stood in 1928. Today you can still see these towers. I mean, you don't see the chimneys anymore, but you see the tower, and it still can be visited. Actually, there are city tours taking you to also to the colony, like the workers' colony built around it. And if we go back, we can see a map also of, so this is also from the planning phase. I mean, from between 1913 and 1915. This map was produced to show how the position of the works, and you can see that the Danube was really near, and that you can also see that it was really important to build it in a way that railways can reach the site, so that a railway bridge also had to be positioned in a way which is suitable for this huge plant. So it really made a big change to the third district. I mean, it's still a third district. It's the Óbuda, and yeah, it's just you see that it's a size on the map. It's quite visible that it's not a tiny plant. So I don't know if I have one more image. Maybe I have one more, but yeah, okay. So this is the railways line. I think it's one of the key decisions to make, actually, how the coal should be brought in and how it should be then channeled into the plants. And it's a very elaborate, very neat structure. It's just also from an aesthetic point of view, it's an interesting photo, I guess. So that was my last one.
Thank you very much. And I will very briefly just mention a project that I just engaged working on, and which I'm hoping in some ways to include either in the book or perhaps not in the book, but will be a specific project, which is an environmental failure in some ways, or the question how much it's an environmental infrastructural failure, which is the so-called Constantinople in Budapest company and its short-lived success and then failure. The area which I'm talking about is in the southern part of Buda, a swampy area or a shallow area of the river Danube, which caused a lot of problems for the city in the early 19th or in the 18th, 19th century, because this was the area which created ice barriers on a lot of cases on the Danube, leading to large floods in 1838 and in the 18th century, a number of occasions which have been studied both by Eleonora Gera and Andrea Kiss. And the city, following the 1838 floods, decided to regulate this area, to narrow the river in order to protect the city from ice floods like the 1838 ice flood, which basically needed a major reconstruction in many parts of the city. And they have created a dam along the river. This is how the area looked like in the 1870s and 80s. So they have created this dam which protected the city from ice floods because it speeded up the current of the river in this area, which was the hotbed of these problems. But there was not necessarily an idea how to utilize this lake which came into existence, which then shortly after its creation was cut in two parts because of the construction of the railway system, something that you see on the image, the bridge of the Southern Railway line which crossed the Danube, which was the first railway bridge in the territory of Budapest, and there was a later addition on the northern part of the city, which cut this area in two, made this part very shallow, also provided very little exchange of the water. Nonetheless, it was relatively close to the city, and water was an attractive area. So in the 1890s, in the wake of the boom of the millennium celebrations of the Hungarian conquest in 896, from large debts and from private investors, a company called Constantinople in Budapest decided to create a large spectacle in Budapest, in some ways as the counterpart of the 1896 celebrations taking place in the city park on the Pest side, on the more dynamic Pest side. This was created within a couple of months' time. It's not necessarily visible on the images that we have, but most of them were very low quality materials. They used temporary materials to put up the buildings, most of which, of course, lacked any kind of heating system. So they only planned this project to actually be a visitable area in the summer times or from late spring to early autumn, which was supposed to be an area with a lot of inns, pubs, a lot of theater performances, sort of an Eastern kind of milieu, which was very popular at that time in Western Europe, with a lot of similar kind of constructions in London, in Paris, and in Vienna. And they wanted to create actually one of the largest of such projects in Budapest, which they actually did in 1896, as I mentioned. The project seemed to be a great success. Every press that was printed at that time covered the events, the great openings, that they had fireworks every day. But eventually, actually, it seemed like a very popular attraction for the city. There was a lake, there was a small island in the middle, which is actually a remnant of a small natural shallow of the river, going back to the Middle Ages, or known from the Middle Ages onwards. So they have decided to put up one of the central buildings on that. So it was a very popular spectacle at first. However, already in the first year, but especially in the second year of the opening of this project, problems came. Many of the reports about this company mentioned that because of the bad weather conditions, this event or this new investment was not necessarily very successful. I was trying to corroborate that with the actual weather circumstances, which turned out to be not very bad, neither in 1896 nor in the coming year, especially not in the summertime. And of course, rainfall would be the most important problem, which was not necessarily something which they experienced more than in the preceding decades. But there was another issue which made me think of including this into the project, which is the recurrent references to the problem of the mosquitoes in the site. So as I mentioned, this is a very shallow lake with very little current, with very little circulation. So actually it was a hotbed for the mosquitoes. And this is exactly the period when around the turning of the century, when scientific research actually pointed to the spread of diseases as associated with the mosquitoes, especially malaria, also cholera, but cholera was, they also associated actually the spread of cholera with mosquitoes for a while, but mostly the malaria was mentioned as a problem. So it seems that right at the time when mosquitoes became something to be feared of, there was a site which was full of mosquitoes, according to contemporary literary works, which mentioned that, as well as some of the press coverages from the time. And it seems to have miserably failed. Most of the scholarship, which is not very abundant on the history of this project, most of the scholarship, like 2 exhibitions which took place in the last decade, focused on the buildings themselves, because we have the original plans of the buildings in the Hungarian National Archives. But none of them actually concerned in depth why this project was a failure, whether it was weather, whether it was the mosquitoes which eventually have put an end to this project, or a third version, which is actually the distance to the city. So either, or even if they provided to connect this area with the city as much as it was possible, they have created a small ship. So that there was a ship which was carrying people from the city center to this area. And already in 1896, they were actually petitioning for the extension of this this harbor, where they could accommodate the ships. But it seems that by that time, Pest was obviously the place for people to have fun, and especially the so-called Pest Broadway was already in the turning of the century the center of the nightlife of Budapest, and people felt that it was quite far from the city both in 1896 and 7. So in the 2 years when this project was going on, they have tried to create a constant connection between the two, with carriages and in other ways, but it turned out to be simply not part of the urban tissue at that time. So it seems like a complex site where probably mosquitoes, infrastructure, as well as perhaps on some of the occasions weather was the large barrier to create this new area of the nightlife of Budapest, a project which was really ephemeral. So after 1897, everything was closed down there, and within a couple of years, as these buildings were mostly wooden ones, it completely disappeared. So by the early 1910s, there was barely any visible sign of this construction on the photo. So it is a short-lived project, which nonetheless could be an interesting case study in our project of how actually urban infrastructure created in some ways a space out of which there was relatively little possibility for development. The disappearance of this area is also, or the draining of this area on the long run was also an interesting case, which I'm not going to detail here. The area which we are talking about right now is the site of the Budapest University for Technology, as well as of the Eötvös Loránd University, which is the home of our project. So on the long run, this area was drained, but still in the 1990s, there were little remnants which were still visible of this lake before it was completely drained to create a new office building complex in the 1990s. So this is where I will stop, and thank you for your attention. And I will stop sharing now. Yes. There are questions. We are happy to try to answer them, or if you have comments, suggestions, possible parallel projects which could be relevant for us. We are most happy to hear about them.
Sorry, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Because I realized I didn't explain my title exactly, so that I use the term thermocene in that in the title. And yeah, actually, I should have mentioned, of course, in the beginning that this is I chose the topic of gas also because it takes us, I mean, connects us to this global history of, fossil fuels. I mean, this was the carbon gas was the first form of fossil fuel which was used globally and which really had a huge impact on environment everywhere, and which really expanded very rapidly with the expansion of the population worldwide. So that's why, and thermocene is the term which some people, some historians working on the Anthropocene also suggest that we could actually understand this kind of age of global crisis as the age of fossil fuel, and that's why they use the thermocene, I mean, to indicate the climate change as a major thing. So I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that initially.
Thank you for elaborating on that. I'm not sure if there is anyone here with us, but
yeah, there are.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So if there are any questions, I'm not sure how it's usually done because I only attended a few occasions, but are you here with us or?
Hello. Hi. I guess you can chat a bit among yourselves. What join you in this roundtable? Can I ask what is your common goal, or what would arise here as common topics for you?
Okay, if I may, I would comment on this. I think that infrastructures are one of the most inspiring concepts of urban environmental history, just because of the fact that there are also material realizations of so many concepts that affect how a city can relate to its hinterland, to its environment, and so on and so forth. And so infrastructures reinforce social hierarchies in cities, and also creates new social hierarchies in cities, and this relates to the question of environmental justice, or to the question of environmental inequalities in an urban framework. So we have seen together, when we started to put together this project, that maybe infrastructures can englobe so many concepts and questions and research interests that it seemed to be a good idea to organize a lot of research, a lot of different researches around the notion of infrastructure. I think that was the idea for today.
And also what we discussed, the interest, the question of interest, how municipal kind of leadership perceived the interest of the city, how the interest of the city itself kind of was measured against private interest, how this, what you also mentioned, Veronika, this idea of commons, how it shifted and how it kind of made a circle, disappeared and came back within a few decades actually. So I think also this question of the perception, contemporary perception of what interest is and what should be privileged as interest was also a kind of a organizing principle. At least when we had this first discussion in Page, I think that also came up.
Actually, we had a workshop when the Viennese colleagues came and explained a huge project that they did about water infrastructures and water in general in Vienna, and it was like super inspiring. It's about a book with the title Wasserstadt Wien. And it was also a great source of inspiration when we clarified some limits of our research and also the main questions that interest us.
And what do you think about the role of water itself in this story?
Maybe Agi, you should answer something. Actually, water itself is offers a great variety of urban environmental researches. So that's why I think it's a very compelling and attractive topic. Obviously, the Danube regulation and the regulation of waters in general was such a spectacular urban transformation as well that we have previous literature about that. And that is important because András has already mentioned that from the point of view of urban environmental history, there are not much about Budapest. So we can rely on this previous literature on water regulation and water usage questions, which is a great advantage to not to start a research from zero. I know, so because of the same that we have said about infrastructures, it is just such a great big thing that englobes so many sub-chapters and sub-questions and sub-inquiries that it's really offers opportunity to think collectively but also autonomously on research projects.
So I think we have certain over-reliance now on water-related issues. So it seemed like a topic which we could very well relate to, not only because some of the sample projects which we saw were very much focused on water, but it seemed to have been one of the main infrastructural concerns in 19th century, not only in terms of the Danube, but also which Ágnes mentioned also in terms of the tributaries of the Danube. So it seemed like something which in many ways connects some of the problems quite well. We mostly focused on water, except for Róbert today, but some of our other elements would entail forests that we did not have time to talk about today, which would also be in the focus, the dichotomy of the hilly Buda and the flatlands of Pest, some of the other problems of the environment like sand dusts, etc., or sandstorms, etc. So it would not be only focused on that, but would be one of the main elements probably which brought us together or the project together.
Yeah, so just to add to it that about water, not just the Danube, but also what András mentioned, that these streams, beside buildings and the constructions of and the urban plans, the waters transformed in the biggest way in Budapest in the 19th century. So not just the regulation of the Danube, but the regulation of the several streams. Also, some of them became part of the sewerage system, like an underground canal, and there are a lot of almost all the big cities in Europe has a parallel. Almost every big city has an underground stream or river, which became a sewer. So so there are really big constructions regarding the water. So that's also why how the urban environment changed during the 19th and 20th century, which still define our lives at this time. Any questions?
We don't want to prioritize your times, so
Yeah, you can write to us later on also.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you have, but you would find us on academia.edu, and we are happy to be in touch. And if indeed there is any similar project going on, we would love to know about them. So we heard that there is an urban environmental history project on Berlin, of which we know very little, for instance. So it would be very nice to know about colleagues working on 19th century urban environmental histories on other sides than what we know of.
Great. Oh, Cosmin?
Yeah, there was a hand raised.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just came late to the discussion because I switched the hours. I just came to Budapest and I thought it's starting at 6 or anyway. I was just wondering, do you address also secondary schools? How secondary schools during the late 19th century were organizing botanical school gardens and doing somewhat kind of environmental protection, which leads to protection of birds and trees. I found some important materials related to Budapest in which school children were brought out by secondary school natural history teachers and tried to promote various ideas of nature protection. So that would be my question. I don't know if you addressed it or you discussed it, or I'm just asking. Sorry for coming so late and missed all the important aspects. And congratulations for your project. I understood it's a project.
Yeah, no, we don't really have this. I mean, I haven't come across, but I would be really interested. I was the one who has to say something about birds as well. I mean, I'm discussing pigeons in particular right now, but yeah, I would be interested to know about this source. It's just that one area came to my view. It's called the area around the Ludovica University, which used to be the Orci Park. So I mean, of course, there were many, like not high school students, but university students there, and the botanical garden was right there in the vicinity. So maybe there is also connection, but I haven't looked at it. Maybe Ágnes knows something about the history of the botanical garden there on just across the street.
Yes, actually about a botanical garden in a secondary school, because I have the student with the project of his.
Oh.
There was in the second half of the 19th century a botanical garden near the castle, the Buda castle. There was a secondary school. Still there is a secondary school called Toldi, and there were really very there was a teacher who taught some start biology and geography, and he organized a botanical garden and collected a lot of seeds and plants, etc. And it was for teaching outside, you know. That I think it's too much to say that for environment protection, because I think they didn't call or that at that time, but it was to show the students and also to teach them in the natural sources. So I maybe we can get in touch via email, and because I work at the Budapest City Archives, and there are some materials, and also yeah. So if you are interested in specifically in secondary schools, but also there are some botanical gardens connected to the universities, like what Róbert mentioned, and also there were another one also. So I can put in the chat my work email address, and you can write to me about it.
I'm asking because in secondary school in that period, the idea of Lebensgemeinschaft, the biological community, which is still in use in ecology, started from secondary schools, not in university research areas. So that's why I'm asking. It's quite important.
So sorry, can I jump in?
Yes.
To answer, because I know what was sorry, I'm Anna Varga, and
Yes,
I work on I'm also work on wood pastures and also environmental educations, but not in Budapest. But I'm from Hungary, and I work. I know what you were asking, Cosmin. So actually, it was a country law which was introduced in 1906 by the Hungarian government, which was led by Otto Hermann. He was suggested this to introduce the bird and tree days in all Hungary, including also in Transylvania, and it was put in the law. And usually, why I am interested in it, because it was usually they took the children to the local wood pasture. So this is why I have lots of research. I have lots of research from it, how the wood pasture were used in the past as an environmental education ground, and which is interesting that the idea was brought from the US, because some Hungarian environmentalists went to the US in the end of the 19th century, and where they see the success of the Arbor Day and Bird Day. In the US, they separated, they celebrated in separate days, but in Hungary, they put it together, and it's 10th of May. And during the Soviet time, they didn't celebrate this day, but in the end of the 20th century, they reintroduced this day again into the school system. But now it's not in not in the law, but many schools celebrated again this 10th
so it's still
of
running.
May. Yes, it's still running.
Oh my God, okay.
It's reintroduced.
Oh my God.
So if you have any questions about, also, I'm happy. I love this topic. Sorry to interrupt the Budapest environmental history, but
maybe we'll connect after the discussion.
Yes, sorry.
Next to that, there is an article by Beatty on Arbor Day in New Zealand and how late 19th century missionaries actually brought it to there and became a very popular thing in the late 19th century there as well. And I'm actually teaching that article. My Erasmus students just read it for yesterday, so it's a fresh memory.
And sorry for the question, but I heard that this kind of celebration, the Arbor and the Trees and Birds Day, are also in Romania, not just in the Transylvania part. And which is the origin of this tradition?
Yes, they are also in Romania, but in Romania, like they did in the US, they divided the celebration. They did only the Arbor Day. They left behind the birds during the winter period. But I don't know. Nowadays, They tried to introduce something similar in the school curriculum, but yes.
Is it 21st of March for the 3-day, or which day is it?
I can't remember exactly, but still, I was just thinking in the interwar period, the forestry department from Romania organized the Arbor Day, but they left behind the bird raid, and they knew all about this literature from their Romanian companions from Transylvania. But anyway.
András was there in his dissertation. I wrote read about this celebration, and I remember that it included the birds, despite the arbors. I don't know. Thank you.
We cannot hear you, András.
Can you hear me now? So I'm not sure whether it's Nina who should. And in the meantime, Cosmin, we would be grateful to be in. So we would be very happy to be in contact with you actually on this topic, because that could be channeled in, I think, and could be a very, very relevant.
Yes, I published a small article comparing it a bit for the late 19th century in Romania and Transylvania.
Do you mind sharing that with us? I just added my email, and I can circulate it amongst the colleagues if that's fine.
Yes, I received it. Yeah, okay, I will share it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And I'm in Budapest. Maybe we can meet the following days.
Okay, I think I found your email address, so I will be in touch with you. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Great. If there is no more questions or debate, I thank you once again for putting together this session, and I hope we can meet all soon, and I wish you the best luck for your project and new contacts, I hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.